Okay, Peter, welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, tell me how I can help you today.
Well, um, how you can help me? As I mentioned in my email, I've seen your videos with YouTube with Z Dog and Angelo,
Yeah,
and that very much piqued my interest because I've been working on in a sort of a non-duality forum for 3 or 4 years following Angelo, and I'm just getting a little frustrated about trying to trying to get through the process of finding out who or what I am.
got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. So, just to recap it, you've been, following these teachers, and it sounds like you've been putting in the time and in communication with other people and on a forum, but it to you it feels like you're just not getting it. Like there's some kind of frustration that
Well,
it's
I
just not
feel yeah, I feel very stuck.
stuck.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, I feel like intellectually, I understand. Of
Yeah.
course, um, Angelo repeatedly tells us that it's not a conceptual process, that you have to get beyond the conceptual.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that's where I'm getting stuck.
Okay. Well, I totally hear you and I can empathize because I know exactly what that feels like. And I'm sure you're aware you're not alone. There are so many people on this path who, yeah, read the books, watch the videos, feel like they're doing all the right things, but it's just somehow they're not getting traction with it. And I used to be like that too. So I know what that feels like. I remember hearing certain phrases teachers would say and think like, I think I know what that means, but I don't really get it. And yeah, so how does this sound? Let's try to make this session as non-conceptual and just as experiential as possible. And we'll see if we can uh, give you at least some kind of a taste of what we're talking about here. So it's not just living as an idea, but something that you're actually feeling in your senses. Would that be helpful to you?
Yeah, and just to make sure you understand,
Yeah.
the reason that I made the contact was because I'm interested in the psychedelic retreat.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like that might be something that would jog me a little bit
Yeah.
into
Mhm.
into a more direct um, perception.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I do think it can really help. And yeah, to be honest, I mean that was really for me personally what helped close the gap. Um, I think, yeah, it's easy to get frustrated in this process. And the first thing that I want to assure you of is there's nothing wrong with you. It's not your fault. There's something, at least where I'm coming from, and this is what the research on this seems to align is there is something neurological that needs to happen in the brain. It's not just some kind of magic wand or something that's just in the ether that is automatically. Some people say it's already the case and it's just so obvious. You just have to see it. Um, it feels that way when you get it, but so to speak. But we know enough now to know that there are very specific changes in the brain that happen when people have these awakening experiences. And I don't need to go into all the details because it's kind of technical, and that's for another chapter. But what we know is that certain forms of meditation tend to start inducing these brain changes. And we also know that psychedelics tend to be very, very effective at inducing them. And I know for me personally, I meditated for many, many years, 15 years. Zen, I went to a monastery, the whole 9 yards. Um, Something was missing. And it wasn't until I started with psychedelics that the lights just came on. I can't promise that outcome to everybody, of course, but I say that as inspiration that, yes, sometimes when you're feeling stuck, I do think psychedelics can make the difference. And the way I approach this, Peter, is some people for some reason think of awakening as like a race, and so they say, "Oh, you can't use psychedelics because that's cheating." And for me, I think of this process as more like a birthright that I think everybody should have access to. And so, it's like if you, I don't know, it's like not everybody can run a 4-minute mile, but if you have a motorcycle, it's pretty easy to blast through it, right? So it's like sometimes you need help. I think of it from almost like I think of also from a disability perspective. It's not exactly the same thing, but I'm as a social worker, I'm big into equity, right? So I think that when people have trouble accessing something, we should try to find accommodations and help. And so I know for me, I have a brain that's just not good at meditating. A lot of neurological problems, Lyme disease, brain damage, the whole 9 yards. So it was never going to happen for me just organically. So I needed some help, and it worked. And so compassionately, when I'm working with people, that's how I like to approach this. There's nothing wrong with you. There's no shame. Some people just for whatever reason have the good fortune that their minds, their brains just click into this stuff, sometimes spontaneously. But then for the rest of us, we need some help. And that's where psychedelics can really be effective. So obviously we won't be doing that today, but yeah, certainly I think I think your interest is valid and justified. And I've seen a lot of people, even sometimes there's a very low dose where it's just, oh, this is what we've been talking about. It's all right here. It's all consciousness. It's just the lights just come on. So, yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
I should mention that I have had some experience with psychedelics, but it's been many years. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I used psychedelics recreationally, and have only recently tried mushrooms 2 or 3 times on my own to see if I could get any traction. But I feel like it just wasn't, that they talk about setting and intention and having a good guide. And I think that would be much more what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And again, you're not alone. I think, when the genie kind of came out of the bottle with psychedelics in the West, like many years ago, there was just sort of a lot more experimentation happening. And I think that, yeah, with the sort of renaissance, as they call it now, there's a lot more intentionality around responsible use and formal guidance. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, I've talked to a lot of people like you that they've tried it when they were younger, and maybe it wasn't really controlled or sort of therapeutic. But now there's so many opportunities now to sit with, experienced guides and I think have a much more intentional experience. So yeah, I'm really resonating with what you're saying, and I think it would make sense for you, yeah, to explore that. But in the meantime, so you don't feel like you're waiting for the medicine to hit. There's a lot we can do ahead of time that I think really it's all it all kind of dovetails together, because I think if somebody just takes psychedelics but they don't have preparation, they haven't done meditative practices, it's not going to be as insight inducing. But if you have a taste already without the psychedelics, then I think they can take you so much deeper. So that's what I'm hoping that I can give you today, is at least some kind of direct taste of what we're talking about. And then, if you end up working with me or somebody else potentially, it just turns the lights on that much brighter, and it just kind of greases the skids for it to happen. So, Yeah. So are you open to just doing some experimentation today and playing around with consciousness?
Hey, I'm all ears.
Okay, good. Actually, I'm glad you phrased it that way because it's actually this is about sensation, and it's about dropping out of the ideas and into your ears and your eyes and your senses. Um, so let me ask you this: when I do this with people, we can focus on any particular sense, sight, sound, body sensation. I find that picking one to start and just drilling down into it tends to be really helpful. My question for you is there a certain sense, and you may not know the answer, which is okay, that you feel like is more alive for you? Like, are you a very visual person? Are you a very
Yeah, I'm
music
an
auditory
artist.
person? Yeah.
I'm an artist
Oh,
and definitely visual. And I've been trying to work with the visual field,
okay.
based on a lot of Angelo's promptings.
Hmm.
And I feel like often the visual field is so overwhelming
Hmm.
that I can't get beyond it.
Okay. Overwhelming. Get beyond it. Interesting. Do you feel how is your visual field right now? Does it feel overwhelming?
Um, no, it feels controlled right now.
Okay. Can we I love that you're an artist. I'd love to try to work with that. Can we try to just dip a toe in the water and just see kind of what comes up? And you can just let me know if you feel overactivated and we can, do some things to modulate that or sort of switch gears. Um, Now, it sounds like you've tried some things already, so I'm curious, like, for example, like I don't know if the phrase "the headless way" has any meaning for you. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I've read some of Richard Lang and at one of Angelo's retreats he had an interesting physics demonstration uh, about the headless
Hmm.
way. But um, again, intellectually, I get it,
Yeah.
but um, but I don't see it.
Okay. And so you've tried the exercises and it hasn't clicked.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we won't beat our head against the wall with that. Let me try some other things and just sort of see. And again, I think of these as different doors that we knock on, and maybe the door opens, maybe it doesn't. There's no shame, no pressure either way. And it's also possible that none of these doors. It's possible we might try a lot of things, and you might still say it's just not happening. In which case, I would say, well, maybe the psychedelics are really the catalyst that you need. Um, well, before I go too deep in the visual stuff, have you tried other things like sort of expanding the visual field to be more panoramic, or kind of trying to collapse it so it's more two dimensional, um, that sort of thing? And none of that has done anything, or it's
No, and there's always so much talk um, about the movie screen,
hmm
um, seeing it as a movie screen.
yeah.
Um, I I do understand the concept of everything being abstract shapes and colors because that's how I work,
hmm hmm
and I can see everything with labels and without labels. I think in that
hmm
way.
I'm kind of thinking. It sounds like you've done quite a lot of visual stuff, and I don't want to retread too much ground because I have a feeling. Yeah, it sounds like this is a area of a lot of effort and stuckness. And I'm not sure I have other exercises that are going to be too different from what you've already tried. Have you tried the headless way and the kind of expansion and the collapse of all those sorts of things? So I'm kind of inclined to go more in like either a sound or a body sense direction. I'm kind of leaning more towards the body. How do you feel about doing something like that?
Yeah, and that's an area where I feel a little bit out of touch because I've worked with a lot of different people who, you know, during the process of working, you know, it, they always ask you to direct your attention to what you're feeling in your body and where do you feel it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a little out of touch with, usually the answer for that comes either in the stomach or in the chest.
Hmm.
But I don't feel like I'm fully getting it, you know?
Okay. Okay. Why don't we? Well, that sounds like it might be a fruitful direction. Um, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I love how you're using language, like you said, out of touch, right? So it's like it's a turn of phrase, but there's some way that that signifies some kind of intuition you have that maybe you're not as plugged into your physical body. And so, okay, what I'm gonna do, let me see. I'm gonna do just a little bit of explanation, just to set this up, because I think it'll help frame it, and then we're gonna get right into the experiential with it. Um, what we're gonna be doing is just looking at your physical sensations mindfully, and then noticing how with physical sensation you can kind of peel back the layers of the onion and you can notice that physical sensations tend to be happening probably in many layers, but I like to keep it simple. That there's probably like two layers you could divide it in. And let me illustrate what I mean by that. So let's just take this sensation that I have of I'm gripping this pen, right? So if I were to focus my attention in the gripping, I'm closing my eyes and just noticing what's there. Now, the first layer of that experience, I'm just going to call this the sensory layer. It's very simple, just sensations, not too many labels, but I'm going to use words, of course, but there's things like there's pressure, there's a gripping, muscular kind of gripping tension. There's some smoothness, the texture of the pen. There's some heat, things like that. So these are all just very very simple sensations. Try not putting too much story on it. There's a little story always because we're speaking, but it's just the buzzing energy of what's I'm feeling here. But then you can recognize that on top of that, as humans, we tend to apply all these kind of labels and visuals and story. And neuroscience, they call these like priors, high level priors, but they're just sort of, and in this case, it might be something like, I'm holding this pen in my right hand, and the pen is made of plastic, and it's very different from my hand, which is made of flesh and blood. And I like this pen because it's a clicky pen, and I like the sound it makes, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm putting it more into story, more into visual, more into categorization, and I'm treating it as a separate object that's separate from my hands. Do you see what I'm getting at there? These kind of different layers. One's more label, story, visual. One's more just simple, tactile, direct, sensory, nerve endings kind of stuff.
Yeah. I
See
mean,
what I'm getting at there?
I close my eyes.
Mm.
I mean, I can feel all the locations in my body where there is touch
Mm-hmm.
of some kind. And if I continue it, I can lose the sense of space between those areas of touch.
Okay.
So space doesn't really make sense
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Yeah.
I can get to that place.
Okay, because that's where I was going to lead you, but you're already ahead of me. So, so you do have contact with non-duality in your body. It sounds like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe this isn't actually going to be that fruitful. So it sounds like because this is where I usually start people is like, let's close our eyes and we can put, our hands together or hands on the lap, and you start to notice the sensation. And then you can notice it melting or dissolving, or the sense of spaciousness or a sort of decentering of the body being the center of everything and stuff like that. There can be a more oceanic. So, but it sounds like you've already got this. This is already within your experience. Is that right? Okay. So this is great. This is actually not an area of stuckness. Um, okay. So yeah, thinking about our sensory field, we've got the visual, we've got the auditory, we've got the tactile, and you could also extend that into how we're relating to our thoughts and things like that, as thoughts as visual images, thoughts as auditory, experiences and things like that. So so this is good news actually. So you're not completely stuck. You have some fluidity, some non-duality contact in your body actually. Sounds like, even though you said it, you felt a little out of touch, maybe with some of the emotional places. Yeah, yeah, and that is, I think an area to look at as well. And maybe that's actually where we need to go next. I'm just spitballing with you here because we could, like I said, I don't want to beat against the wall of the visual too much. We could certainly work with sound. That's another sensory field, but maybe there's more about the emotions of this frustration or the stuckness.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, a lot, a lot of, a lot of the practices I've tried, people ask or say or or sort of suggest that probably some childhood experiences or traumas may appear, and I don't think I've ever really had that. I mean, I've worked on childhood experiences that I thought might be triggering events, but I've never felt those traumatic things as being traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. It's hard to know. I mean, sometimes traumas are actually resolved, and other times they're sort of buried in a way that it's hard to access, and they can be causing certain forms of contraction or a stuckness in the body, or kind of resistance to opening deeper into non-duality. And again, this is where psychedelics can be really helpful because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients who felt like they had all their trauma behind them, water under the bridge, no
Yeah,
problem. And then, it came roaring back to the surface and they found themselves crying and screaming, processing very,
sure.
very deep wounds. And that's where there was some kind of blockage there that needed to open up. So I'm holding that as a hypothesis. Yeah. Um, but I want to make this session useful to you while we have the time. I don't want to keep sort of delaying, like, oh, well, you'll get there when we get the psychedelics. So I'm trying to figure out what, if anything, we can finesse or loosen up here while we have this time together. Um, I wonder, yeah, I'm trying to think of these different domains. I mean, so there's, we could work with sound. I'm curious if you feel like you have decent non-dual contact with the sound field, or is that a kind of
Uh,
no-go?
yeah, I feel like I've gotten to a space where I could understand that sounds don't necessarily have the origin that we ascribe to them,
Mhm.
that they just appear. Um, I do have a great loss of hearing in one ear, but I don't think that really, with what we're talking about, I don't think it makes much difference.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I have kind of a sense of that sounds are just appearing.
Okay, so you
Um,
have some contact there. Yeah, I'm feeling. Let me know how you're feeling about this. I'm feeling like there's something emotional here that maybe this is where our time is going to be best spent. I wonder if, I mean, so far we've just been talking about non-duality, but um, I don't know you, in a deeper way. I wonder if it feels okay to share if there's anything, um, yeah, like weighing on you right now in your life that maybe doesn't feel like it has anything to do with any of this, but maybe that's where the stuckness
Well,
is. Yeah.
um, well, I guess I have to tell you, I have a cancer diagnosis.
Oh my
Uh,
God, Peter.
I was diagnosed 6 years ago with
Yeah.
colon cancer,
Uh-huh.
and and I'm, excuse me,
No problem.
currently in treatment.
Hmm.
Um, and this is kind of one reason why I'm so invested in finding out what this is all about,
Mm-hmm.
what this really is,
Yeah.
because I may have only a certain amount of time left. Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, all the teachers say, this is going to happen in its own course. You have no control over it. And, you know, these things just occur as they're meant to occur. And that's whenever I hear that, that's kind of disappointing because it basically means no matter what I do, I have no control,
Mm-hmm.
which I understand ultimately is true. I really don't have control. There's very little that we can control.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm really glad I asked because that feels deeply significant. And I'm really sorry to hear that you're going through that. Um, I can imagine that being really challenging and scary, not knowing how much time you have left. And it sounds like within whatever time you do have left, there's a hunger in you to want to go deeper spiritually. And it feels,
Yeah,
yeah.
I want
Mm-hmm.
to know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Yeah. 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 If you're okay with it, I would love to spend some time with you today, just getting in touch with the feelings around this diagnosis, because that's heavy, Peter. That's a lot, and I think, yeah, um, I just want to give you some space to be with that. Can we try to do a little exercise or exploration together, just to get in touch with that? Yeah. Before I just dive in, I always like to preview meditations for people so they know what they're getting themselves into. Um, it's the therapist in me, the informed consent. So what I'd like to imagine doing with you is just having us close our eyes together, and I could just invite you to invite in, the feelings around all of this, cancer, mortality, things like this. And then especially I want to be directing your attention into your body, and just having you spend some time, and we can do this kind of dialogically. I'll check in with you about what you're feeling, and yeah, really prompting you to just stay with the direct physical sensations. And then what we can do, I find this is helpful, is after we've spent some time with the body sensations, we can also then open up into non-duality. And this is kind of an integration exercise, because a lot of times these things are not integrated. There's this feeling of, okay, I'm stuck, or I'm dealing with an emotional problem in my life, but out there is non-duality, and if I could just get that, it would help everything. And it's all. I mean, this is going to sound very cliche, but it's like non-duality is your experience. It is the sensations that are happening right now, and there's a process of integrating all of this, and the integration from where I'm sitting, like, it really needs to include our emotions and our humanity and all these things. And so yeah, let's just try getting in touch with this, and then also opening up and giving it some more space together. Does that sound like something you'd be willing to try? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So let's close our eyes. I'll close my eyes with you. I always like to be in it with you. And yeah, I'll invite you. You're probably used to meditating, but then this exercise, don't try too hard to calm yourself down or do any special breathing exercises or breath work or anything that feels too kind of meditatey. Like we really actually want to get you in touch with your feelings and not kind of check out from them because sometimes meditations check us out. So yeah, just sit and just take a moment just to settle into arriving right here, right now, in your body, such as it is. And then I'll ask you to bring to mind, to heart, this situation you're facing right now that's pretty heavy. You have a cancer diagnosis. You do not know how much time you have left on this earth, in this body, with your loved ones. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's something here about mortality, finiteness, a desire to have some knowledge of yourself, time running out, all these things. Just welcome it in. Don't distract yourself from it. Just really soak in it, actually. I call this turning on the hot stove. We want to actually turn up the heat here. Sit with the discomfort. Okay, and then this is the interactive part. So I'm going to ask you, what, if anything, are you noticing right now in your body as you explore these emotions?
Well, I'm not feeling anything heavy
Yeah, that's
or
okay.
strong. I feel a little bit of awareness of my belly area,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of a little bit awareness in my chest area. Um,
And tell me more about what's happening in your belly or chest. Anything you notice? Is there any heat or coolness or energy, prickle, anything? We're just looking for what's no expectations, just what's happening there that you can notice.
mm, mainly, it's just an awareness um, of a kind of a finite energy, um, maybe a little bit of pressure
There we go.
in
Okay.
the chest,
Yeah. These are the kind of details I'm looking for because this takes us into the texture of the sensation. Okay. So you said pressure in your chest?
a little bit,
A little
yeah,
bit.
just kind of enveloping a certain area.
Mm-hmm. Now tell me more about this pressure. And by the way, if you feel like this is super subtle and it's fading quickly, you can kind of recharge it sometimes, like just bring back to mind, well, honestly, mortality and cancer and these challenging things that are weighing on you, and see if the feeling kind of that gets hotter again, because we actually want to have a certain level of sensation to notice. So, okay, so you said pressure in the chest. Now, tell me, does that feel like an inner kind of gripping, like someone has their, it's gripping inside, or is it more like a pushing, like you have a weight on your chest?
Mm. It's a very subtle pressure, kind of going across the front, kind of symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't see that it has like a color or a noise or anything like that.
Okay. How big would you say it is? Like the size of a hand?
Um, Maybe the size of two hands.
Two hands. Okay. I can visualize that. So it sounds like it's somewhat superficial on the surface, two hands, kind of almost like pushing on your chest. Is that right?
Yeah, but it's very subtle.
Yeah, that's okay. Subtle is fine. We don't have any expectations. This is just your authentic experience. Sometimes people get big sensations with these things. Sometimes it's more subtle. But we have to start somewhere and just see what's coming up and what we work with. Yeah. So what I'll have you do just to spend some more time with this is just I'm just going to give you maybe a minute or two in silence, and your only task here is just noticing the sensations in your chest. It seems like this is the main area. So just imagine your attention kind of like a microscope, just noticing the subtleties, things like size and shape and pressure. And it's sort of clinical like a microscope, but there's also a compassion here because we're just being with the feelings, right? We're not trying to fix them or talk yourself out of them. Just really showing up for these feelings in your chest. So I'll just go into silence here for a
The
minute or two.
longer
Yeah.
I sit with it, the area of the stomach seems to become a little more powerful than what's going on in the chest.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let's move down a little bit then. Tell me what's going on in your stomach.
Well, it's kind of a roundish um, energy. Um, Feels kind of deep and dark.
Mm. Like a bowling ball, kind of. Is it
Well, yeah,
dense, heavy?
kind of in the area of the intestines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, dark, round energy. Heavy or light? Is it?
Um, it's not oppressive, but it's definitely there,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and it's kind of starting to feel turbulent.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is good that you're noticing and connecting with this. So let's do this. I'm gonna circle back to the silence and just I'm just gonna let you have let's say 2 full minutes to just be with these sensations. So like I said earlier, take your attention and really go into like a microscope, just noticing mindfully all these different things you've been telling me, all the textures, shape, size, color, density, pressure, temperature, things like that. Just noticing. No other agenda than that. And yeah, then in a couple minutes, I'll just check in with you and see how it's feeling. And then we can see what we're going to do next.
Okay.
Okay. I'm checking in. Tell me, what are you noticing now? How's the intensity of it?
Isn't changing, but had a lot of thoughts racing
Okay.
through my mind, of course, and I was trying to focus on the mortality aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to not be here?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as not being here?
Got it. Okay. So it sounds like, yeah, you were focusing on the sensations and then a storm of thoughts came through, which is totally understandable given your situation. And there were some questions there that were challenging. And I first just want to validate all of that because that's so real. And um, yeah, I can only imagine how challenging this all is. Uh, and I also know you're here to explore a different relationship with all this. And what I'd invite you into now is just noticing these thoughts, just like you might notice the body sensations, right? So we talked about temperature, pressure, texture, things like that, and you were quite skilled at just identifying that. Often when thoughts arise, there's a built-in heaviness to them because it feels like they demand an answer, and they can almost feel like these blocks coming down. I don't know if you know that old game Tetris, where that you kind of trying to arrange these blocks in the right pattern to make sure it makes sense. And something shifts when we just notice the thoughts as textures, as sounds, almost like poetry or music. So now I'm kind of curious to explore these thoughts you mentioned, like what does it mean to not be here? We could take that in a conceptual direction, which you've already sounds like been chewing on it a little bit. Let's try taking it in a sensory direction. Instead of trying to make sense of it, try to make sensation out of it, if you will. And so, for example, I might ask you a question like the thought, what does it mean to not be here? How does that show up for you? Is it a voice? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Is it your voice? Someone else's? How would you describe the texture, the sensation of that thought?
It's really hard to verbalize.
It is. Yeah, it's okay. Just do your best, even if it's just,
Um,
yeah, this is subtle stuff.
I mean, it doesn't feel threatening. It
Mhm.
it feel it's just inquisitive. It's
But tell me how, sorry to interrupt. I want to drill into
I don't
the,
know.
t-
You're
yeah,
after sensation.
yeah, like because thoughts usually show up. Well, first of all, let's just divide it. Is it a sound or is it an image or maybe both?
Um, well, a voice.
Okay, there we go. So that's okay. So we've nailed that down. So there's a voice. Now, does it sound like your voice or is it somebody else's voice?
So it feels much quieter than my voice.
Okay. So it's almost like it's is it sort of like your voice but just quieter, or is it does it actually feel like a different voice?
I guess it's my voice.
Okay, so your voice quieter, let's say. Okay, this is great. So we've identified now the tone. So it's again thinking of it just like music. Okay, so it has the timbre of your voice. It's quieter. So you see, we're moving out of the conceptual. Not that the conceptual is bad. It's just we spend too much time there, and that's kind of where we get stuck as humans. But there's this whole other dimension to thoughts that are the sensory energy of them and the texture of them. Now, here's another question. That sound, that quiet sound of your voice, does it have a location? Like, does it feel like it's inside your head? Is it in the room, somewhere else?
It feels like it's outside of my head, but not distant,
Okay, outside. Okay, so
close by.
somewhere. Yeah, got it. Got it. Okay. Okay, good. You're really good at this, Peter. You're yeah, noticing all these subtle textures. Yeah. So, um, I wish we had much more time, but just given the limited time frame here, I want to, if you're okay with it, shift gears a little bit to sort of the last step of this. So far you've been noticing this whole cluster of experience around cancer, mortality. You've noticed it as body sensations. You've noticed it as thoughts, all these different textures arising, and shifting gears into non-duality a little more. I'd like you to now get in touch with, you might say, the space that all this is happening in. And I'll invite you to do this a couple of ways, one of which is sort of visual, and the other is more auditory. Um, for the visual one, still with your eyes closed, I want you to just look through your closed eyelids as if you're looking at something in the distance, like a lighthouse out on an island or something like that, something far away. But your eyes are closed, and you might notice something about looking through your closed eyelids that there's no corners or edges, no near or far. There's just this kind of soft field of maybe some dappled light or things like that on your eyelids. But there can be a feeling there, and it's okay if it's not there, but just something to explore, a feeling of expansion, of opening. It kind of feels to people like looking up at the stars, looking into fog, looking up at the sky, that sort of thing. Just a sort of softening expansion. Do you get any inkling of what I'm talking about there?
A little bit. I mean, it's to me, it's reddish, kind of turbulent, but stationary. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like a like very blotchy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you're describing, yeah, some of the just direct sort of shapes and colors of that. And yeah, it sounds like it's not necessarily doing a lot for you in sort of this deeper opening, which is fine. I mean, I know you said the visual field was kind of not a strong suit, which is to be expected. So let's just stay with that, and then let's also try opening up into auditory space, by which I mean simply like extend your hearing out and just notice how you can't hear where your hearing ends. And so it might feel, if you just open your sense of sound wide open, that it can feel as if you're hearing out into boundlessness. And there can be a sense of opening space, getting outside of the skull. a kind of sky-like feeling of relaxed openness, almost like hearing out into this infinite 360 soundscape around you. Instead of focusing on this sound or that sound, it's kind of like hearing itself, just noticing the feeling of auditory consciousness. Any sense of what I'm pointing out there?
Well, I've kind of worked with hearing a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
myself, and I mean, hearing feels like it's everywhere.
Okay. So
Um,
yeah, you've got some contact there. And the last thing you can do is something I think this is your strong suit. It sounds like is just getting in touch with your body, but also this sense of space, right? So instead of being stuck in the container of the body boundaries, just softening up that map and having this just sense of it's kind of like, yeah, the sensations are like the content, and we're noticing the container they're in. They're ultimately not separate, but there's a helpful shift in just sensing the context of awareness. And so instead of feeling like we're stuck in our head or stuck in our body, there can be this sense of a boundless spaciousness in which these body sensations are appearing. And the last thing that we'll do now, kind of weaving it all together, is any kind of contact you have, whether that's with your body, sound, your eyes, with this just sense of openness, a different relationship with your sensory experience that's not just, ruminating on thoughts in your head, but just getting in touch with this feeling of being that doesn't seem to have any inherent borders or boundaries, just a kind of open, spacious field of sensation. And what I'll have you do actually is to revisit now the cancer, mortality, time running out. And it might be subtle, like before. Maybe there's a little of that chest pressure, a little of that dark energy, that bulb energy in your stomach. Maybe it's not there. Whatever's there is whatever's there. But the twist here is we have a different kind of working space, a different context. Instead of just staying within the tightness of attention from the head, the container of the body, now there's a way of noticing this from, or as you could say, language fails here, but awareness as this kind of non-dual spacious presence. There's a lot more room here. That's the point I'm getting at. And so sometimes when these difficult body sensations come up, it can feel like they're trapped, like they need to be managed. Now they have a lot of room. And so what can be helpful is to, whatever sensation you're noticing in your body, even if it's very subtle, allow it to grow. And I mean that quite literally. Like imagine if there's something in your stomach, something in your chest, that cluster of sensations, allow it to get bigger and bigger, like actually visualizing the sensations getting larger and larger and larger and larger. It's the opposite of usually what we want to do, because usually we want to make them smaller, make them get rid of them, but make them go away. But if you actually invite them in, we're giving them their fullest expression. We're allowing them to really stretch their legs in awareness. And just become one with this field. And you might notice, maybe not, but usually when we give them all the space, the density of the feeling tends to soften a bit. When it's not a bowling ball in the stomach, for example, all of a sudden it has all this space. It might just feel like a bunch of butterflies flying out into the sky. Energy, but expanded container. The aperture of attention wide open and the energy expanding. And the beautiful thing is we're not trying to get rid of it. That's usually the resistance move, but we're actually inviting it bigger, inviting it to have its fullest release, its fullest expression, I should say. So we're actually welcoming it in the biggest way that we can. And it just so happens when we do that, it tends to soften, usually, depressurize, get more spacious. It's all the thoughts, all the feelings, it's all still here, perhaps. It might just feel different. It might feel a little looser, a little more open, a little less sticky, not needing management or fixing, just allowed to be.
I can feel the loss of boundaries of my physical body, but I don't really, I can visualize what you're saying, but I don't feel those sensations expanding.
Mm-hmm. Like they still feel like they're just stuck. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's some kind of block there. Yeah. So you can, so visually you're doing the visualization, but somehow the energy still remains locked. Is that what you're saying?
Mm, no, the sensation remains stationary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Does it?
guess
Yeah.
I could see the energy of it
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
expanding.
Yeah. So let's try with just one more thing. Another way that sometimes works for people, because sometimes visualization is not enough, is you can also imagine kind of, it's sort of a different way in where you just imagine kind of zooming in so deep into those sensations that they kind of are expanding because you're getting smaller. It sounds kind of weird, but it's like your attention, almost like you're shrinking your attention down into this little microscope that's just going so deep into these sensations that they kind of naturally expand just because we're changing the vantage point. And maybe this isn't going to move, which is fine. That's what psychedelics are really helpful for. But I'm just seeing if we can get any just sort of shift in the density of these feelings so they're not being mapped by your mind as these kind of blocks in your chest and your stomach, but you can see the energy as space, as almost like sparks or atoms dancing in the spaciousness of consciousness, not just as a visual, but really feeling the density loosen up. So I'll give you some time just to play with that, and then you can tell me what you're noticing.
I can kind of feel the edges of it kind of softening and expanding, but it
Mm-hmm.
still feels like there's kind of a knot
Yeah.
in the middle of the belly.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we, as we're getting close to the end of time here, I'll invite you to just go ahead and open your eyes, and we can start to just unpack and wrap up and conclude meaningfully here together.
I have to tell you one thing
Yeah.
about the cancer. First of all, it's in the colon, which could explain the sensation, but I don't really attach the feelings we've been talking about
Yeah.
with the actual disease. But um, fairly shortly after my diagnosis, I kind of I'm a very inquisitive person, and I spent a great deal of time looking at alternate treatments and holistic treatments and
Mm-hmm.
so forth, and have been doing, you know, second opinions and consultations with naturopaths and so forth. And I've already gone way beyond, I'm over 6 years past, which is unusual in itself. And I have a belief that I'm going to beat it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But but because I map out my treatment path, and it's a fairly busy one, and I just go about it as part of what this is. This is my experience, and I have to live it.
Yeah.
And in a way, I don't know if it's uh, if I'm rejecting it or failing to look at it, but I really don't think about this, normally during my daily activities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, once in a while I will remember this and why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I feel in a way kind of distanced from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That feels like really all of it really important information. And yeah, it's all understandable. I was feeling so many things along the way as you were talking. I mean, I love your exploration of these alternative treatments. I'm so hopeful for you. I'm right there with you. Like, I hope you do beat this. I mean, of course, we know mortality is always going to be there, um, waiting for us. But maybe this is not your time yet. Maybe you still have years ahead, and I really sincerely hope that for you. Um, and yeah, it's understandable. I think when we have something so heavy that can induce so much fear or grief, that it's not always going to be there in our mind, and sometimes we are maybe distancing ourselves from it, and we need to actually spend more time with it. But sometimes that's just not what's coming up in the moment. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes. And it's helpful to know the location of it too, because I think that matters when we're talking about body sensations and psychedelics as well too. So what I would say, just to start kind of wrapping up, is yeah, it seems like yeah, there's so much going on with you, emotionally with this, and what I was seeing with when it comes to contact with non-duality, it for many people it tends to at some point crystallize into this kind of multi-sensory experience where it's just sort of more of your default way of being, and it sounds like you've made, from my perspective, a lot of progress. Like you were, it sounds like you have some contact, in your auditory field, your body certainly, the visual field feels a little more stuck for whatever reason, and there's kind of room for growth there, but yeah, so there's already kind of a lot there that's already happening for you. And as I saw, what we were doing with the meditation is really getting in touch with your emotional body sensations. And yeah, what I find, this is a practice I do with a lot of people where we conjure up the sensations. I call this the hot stove, what's difficult, and then go in with our attention, and then we sort of open up into non-duality. And it's always challenging in the context of a session like this because our time is very limited, right? I was giving you, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, right? Very short. And so, we can only expect so much. But it's interesting to hear that even with those short intervals, you were noticing there was something happening, some softening around the edges of it, some expansion. So I'm hoping this is just planting a seed. And then if you imagine if you were to do this exercise on your own for maybe, 30 minutes, let's say, let me just notice my stomach, something much, deeper and more profound may unfold. And it is something about this kind of expansion and releasing. And it's also possible that it might still be stuck. And this is, again, to circle back to your original sharing and question about the psychedelics, this is why I'm so passionate about psychedelics, because there are many people in this world who, for whatever reason, they're just gifted with their mind body energy and they don't need them. They can just sit and meditate and all sorts of things are happening. And then there are people like me who I'm a terrible meditator. It's taken me many, many years of practice just to, I think have a decent.
I don't have a good practice, a regular practice. I've done a 5-day silent retreat with Angelo, and I had no problem with it. I mean, it was an enjoyable experience, but I didn't bring a regular meditation practice with me, and it just isn't something that seems to work for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good insight. You're not alone. I know meditation is really challenging for many people, and I think it can do a lot. It's certainly been very transformative for me, and for me, there was still some kind of ceiling I was hitting, where it's just there's only so much I can do. And again, thinking about some people need accommodations, right? Some people need assistance or support, and that's where psychedelics, for me, it was really punching through that ceiling and just feeling it shatter. And, so much has opened up after that. And so yeah, it could be that for you, perhaps that's exactly what's needed, not only maybe for the deeper multisensory kind of insight into this nature of being, you might say, although I would sort of put a footnote there that I I would never claim to know the nature of being or the nature of myself or any of these things. It's more like just a koan that just takes me deeper into mystery. So I don't have some answer of like, oh yeah, I know who I am. I know what the way the world works, or I know what consciousness is. Like, I don't know the answer to any of those things. It's more like, for me, just dropping deeper into just direct experience and the mystery of that. So yeah, psychedelics could be very helpful at unlocking some of that for you. And also, if there are any places in your body, like emotionally, that are stuck, that may be related to what you're going through now, maybe also related to things from childhood, those can definitely, expand in a big way. And this is why I designed this meditation this way, because it really mimics actually the progression that I see often with psychedelics is, especially with this 1,5-MeO DMT that I work with, is when you take it, usually you can feel your emotional energy in your body, like very clearly. Like if you're out of touch, it plugs you right into it and you feel it so clearly. And then what can often happen for people is the deeper you go, the less the sense of the body boundaries are there. And there's more just a sense of space, energy, the sense of size and scale and orientation, time and space, like a very loose and something that initially felt like, oh gosh, I'm feeling anxiety in my stomach. It can suddenly feel like some ball of, blue-green energy that's exploding into a supernova or something like that. And that's, how it's releasing, actually. And it's also mysterious. We don't really know how it works. There's different theories and science, but ultimately it's unclear how it happens. But it feels like there's a bundle of energy that can just release, right? So I think there's a lot of promise there for you. Not that I'm promising a particular outcome, but I mean, it's reasonable, I think, to consider it like a fruitful direction for you. So
if I want to work with you, what's the next step?
The next step, the easiest step for you would be, well, you could just, yeah, you could go to my website. I guess I'm saying this also for people listening. And there's a link there to book like a session that would be more specifically focused on the practicalities of us working together. Since we're already in contact, I can just send you an email after this that'll have that link, so you don't have to hunt around my website for it. And
Mhm.
yeah, that'll be our next session. Is get on my calendar, and we'll meet for another 50 minutes. But the focus will be more on really answering all your questions about the retreat and making sure it's the best fit for you. And there'll be a questionnaire there too that'll kind of go through different um, criteria in terms of making sure it's good, it's going to be healthy for you and things like that. So yeah, that's our next step. How does that sound?
Okay. Yeah, I
Great.
mean, I don't think health-wise is any problem. I mean, because I mean, I've been able to travel
Yeah.
pretty much as I wanted.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I've
Um,
served someone who's 80 years old with this medicine, so it's actually very
Well,
safe. But I also always do my due diligence just to make sure people
yeah,
don't have certain
sure.
conditions. So, okay, Peter. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for your patience with the technical difficulties at the beginning. I'm glad we made it work and found a way to meet. And yeah, it's been really lovely connecting with you. And I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty. Yeah, certainly didn't have to disclose the cancer piece, but I think that was such an important core part of what we did today, and I'm glad you felt comfortable sharing. So thank you so much. You take care, and yeah, I'll be in touch soon with that email for you.
All right, very good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye bye.